Okay, this presentation is to help you, give you some guidelines for analyzing the IDOE High Ability Data Card that's provided to each district once a year. So the purpose of your assignment is to interpret the data card. You will come up with 3 observations regarding the identification data provided, and then 3 recommendations based on those observations. You'll do the same things for the performance indicators. This time you'll come up with 4 observations about the performance data and then 3 recommendations based on that data. So let's take a look at what these cards include. On the first page you'll see the identification data, and at the top here you'll see the percent of kids identified as high ability at each grade level, general, intellectual, math, and language arts only. The bottom line is the total percent for each grade level in those categories. The DOE states that a minimum of 4% of students should be identified at each grade level. So you'll want to look at the data card and make sure you've got 4% at each of those levels. If there is a yellow highlight, that means that 0 students were identified for that cell. So that's a problem or a red flag to think about too. The bottom line, the bottom graph here shows us the trend data across 2 different years. So the red is 2012 and the blue is 2013. And this just shows you K-12, what percent of kids were identified as high ability. And you can look at this for some interesting observations. For example, in 2012 at the high school level, you can see that this district way over identified, and I would tend to think that means that they put anybody who is in an AP class they flagged as a high ability student. But in 2013 they corrected for that, so you would be able to comment on something like that on your analysis. We also have districts that over identify. So any data card that has a peach here either has fewer than 4% or greater than 20% of their kids identified. That's a problem. This district I just put up here, look, they start with 0 kids identified in kindergarten, and then the kids get a lot smarter once they hit middle school all the way up through high school. Okay, so what does that tell you, and what does that mean in terms of things that need to be cleaned up about your process? On the next page we have demographic data. This tells you the free and reduced lunch percentage for the state of Indiana. Okay, it's half and half, you can see, but then here is the percent for each district, and then the bottom pie graph is the percent of high ability kids that are free and reduced lunch. So this is a problem. We see the 68% for the district is free and reduced lunch, but only 24% of their high ability kids are. So if the graph looks something like that, that's something to comment on. There's a problem with the identification procedures that we're not finding kids from all the underrepresented populations. Okay, the next page has the data in terms of performance on I-STEP. There's just 1 grade level, 4th grade, because it's such a massive data set to look at each 4th grader in the whole state of Indiana in terms of their Pass Plus performance. So we just looked at 1 grade level here, but you can see it compares how the identified high ability kids did on I-STEP compared to the non-identified within the district and across the state. And on the bottom, I think this is important data to look at. 17% of this district's high ability math students did not score at the Pass Plus level. 39% of their language arts kids didn't score at that level. So that's a problem. We would expect that number to be no higher than 10%. And I-STEP is grade level data, so certainly our high ability kids should be able to master grade level material. So you want to take a look at what your data card says for those percentages. Okay, and then the performance indicators. On the very bottom of the screen it says the percent of high ability graduates that earn an academic honors diploma. There's no reason that shouldn't be 95 to 100% of your kids. Okay, that's a low bar. Likewise, in the middle of the graph is the College Board benchmarks and the PSET data. And those benchmarks tell us the percent of kids who are likely to get an average of a B- GPA their first semester of college. So again, for our high ability kids, every high ability kid should be able to get a B- average or above their first semester of college. So it'll tell you that for this district, only 77% of their kids made that benchmark for reading, 84% made it for math, and 79% made it for writing. And then on the top, we have the AP data. And this tells you at each grade level how many kids are taking the exam and how many high ability kids are taking it and how many high ability kids are passing it. And so you can see this district doesn't offer any AP to 9th and 10th grades. That would be something to comment on. And then over here, you have the overall district performance. So the percentage of their high ability graduates that scored a 3, 4, or 5 on an AP exam was only 16%. Okay, again, that should be very high if it's a high ability student. You can see down here the percent of Indiana as a whole is only 16%, and the United States is 20%. So we've got some work to do with that at the state level as well. So just look at the data card I give you and try to see any trends or make some suggestions for why the data looks like it does. Certainly sometimes it's just a matter of a recording error, but a lot of times it can tell us something about the rigor and the level of instruction we're giving our high ability students. So it's important to think about this data as the floor, not the ceiling. If there's any problem with the performance data on iStep or these PSET benchmarks, that's a red flag to the district. If there's no problem, it doesn't mean that the district is doing, stellar in terms of providing services for high ability. It just means that there's no immediate fire that needs to be put out. So look at that, come up with some targeted recommendations based on your observations, and that will be your assignment for this project. Thank you.